Aloha! You are listening to Inside the Desert Oasis Room, episode number 137. This episode is sponsored by Tandawai Rum, the world's largest rum producer and winner of over 170 international medals in the past 4 decades. Check out their webpage at tandawaiusa.com or follow them on Facebook or Instagram at tandawaiusa. This episode is sponsored by Heartland Hemp and Supply Company. All products are broad-spectrum, THC-free, organically grown, and made in the USA. And shipping is free on all orders. For more information, follow them on Instagram at HH Supply Company or place your order today at heartland-hemp.com. This episode is brought to you by the Magic Zombie Glass, which turns your regular tiki cocktail into a potent voodoo potion that will raise the dead before your very eyes. Just pour a cold beverage into this authentic 13.5-ounce chimney-style glass, and a zombie will magically come to life. For only $20, each order comes with a Magic Zombie Glass and other exclusive collectible items, only available through the Kickstarter campaign. This campaign ends on June 30th, so act fast. Head to Kickstarter now and search for the Magic Zombie Glass. Again, that's Kickstarter.com and search for Magic Zombie Glass. Today we chat with Randy Avon and Nani Maka. Hosted by Tim Swanky Glazner, author of Mai Kai, History and Mystery of the Iconic Tiki Restaurant. We recorded this episode from the Hukilau in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. For this session, we are joined by Randy Avon, son of Pualani Mossman, the face of Hawaii in the 1930s, who modeled for Matson's navigation company, starred in Song of the Islands, and was the inspiration for the song Lovely Hula Hands. And joining us on this episode is Nani Maka, one of the Mai Kai's original mystery girls, the lead dancer at Yankee Clipper's Polynesian Room, and model for Bunny Yeager. Hear their iconic and historic stories of the early days of the Mai Kai, Hawaii, and the height of the Hapa Haole era, including the time that Randy witnessed Elvis Presley being taught how to sing the Hawaiian Wedding Song for the movie Blue Hawaii. As always, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did bringing it to you. And if you did, hit that subscribe button. Subscribing makes it easier for you to follow our adventures. Shares on your social media pages are always appreciated. And if you'd like to help support the show, go to desertoasisroom.com to pick up some merch or make a donation. This podcast does not survive without the help of its sponsors or its listeners. So every purchase or donation, no matter the size, is totally appreciated and helps keep this podcast coming to you every week. Okay, let's get into this. Here's our guest host, Tim Swanky Glazner, with Randy Avon and Nani Maka.
Inside the Desert Oasis Room.
Aloha, folks, and we are back with another episode of Inside the Desert Oasis Room. Today we have a special episode. I have Tim Swanky Glazner, the author of Mai Kai. Can you tell me the whole title?
History and Mystery of the Iconic Tiki Restaurant.
So Swanky is the authority when it comes to the history of the Mai Kai. He wrote the book, and I thought that it would be great to have him be our guest host today because we have 2 very important guests here. I don't want to steal your thunder, Tim, so I'm going to hand the microphone over to you, and I'm going to let you take over the show. So let's welcome our guest host, Tim Glazner, here, folks.
All right, thanks, Adrian. Adrian asked me a couple of days ago here at Hukilau, who's here that I need on my podcast, and the easy answer was Randy Avon. And it's a setup too because Randy's going to be at Tiki Oasis later to do a presentation, and so this is a little intro into Randy. I've described Randy as at least one of the most interesting men in the world, but in the Tiki community, he's got more cred than probably any human being I know. folks we think of, Jeff Berry, Sven Kirsten, who've been researching this stuff. Well, Randy was living it. His family is Hawaiian history. He is Mai Kai history, rum. He's got his hands in a lot of pots that we all wish we could be a part of. And he grew up in an era that I idolize, and in a place that I idolize, the Mai Kai. So I'm very happy to have him as a guest, and I'm going to take over for Adrian and ask a few questions, and we're going to introduce you to my good pal, I'm happy to say, Randy Avon.
Good morning, sir. What a pleasure to see you again.
And Nani Maka is here as well. Some of you have met her at Tiki Oasis and other events. So I want to go backwards a little bit, working back to the big subject you're going to talk about at Oasis. But I want to talk about first a little bit about your history. You were a representative for the state of Florida for a couple of terms, right?
Yes, I was. I served 4 years in the Florida legislature, the only Hawaiian ever to serve in the Florida legislature before I went into the Reagan administration.
And you're the driving force behind the Florida Hawaiian Civic Association, the fastest growing, largest outside of Hawaii, right?
Yes, it is. We began the Florida Hawaiian Civic Association about 10 years ago, and it amazed me as we grew it and began doing events that how many not only Hawaiians were here because of military and then staying here, but because part of the rules were that you had to have the aloha spirit in your heart. So anybody that had that spirit in their heart was eligible for membership in our Florida Hawaiian Civic Association.
And you do a big event every year. The Maka sons have been there many times, right?
Yes, we do. We have an annual luau. We have entertainers come in from Hawaii. We have entertainers from Florida that live here that entertain at Disney and other places around Florida during the course of the year. And, of course, Nani Maka, who's with us, is one of the lead dancers every time that we're there.
And so you took over a job from Leon Spico, who was assistant manager at the Mai Kai from 57 to 67. He left to start his own restaurant, and he handed over a job he had in 67, which was the southeastern manager for Rums of Puerto Rico. Talk a little bit about that tenure.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time working for the rum industry. That was my last real job that I had. We were deeply involved. The Mai Kai, of course, was using Puerto Rican rum. We then created some major fantasies with rum. We took them from people drinking rum and Coke into becoming the official drink in Atlanta for events when the Hyatt Regency opened with the peach daiquiri. And then I invaded Churchill Downs, which is, of course, we're in the middle of the Triple Crown right now. When we went up there with Joe Tannenbaum and Leonce and a dozen Mai Kai girls, I asked them if they had any entertainment for the Kentucky Oaks on Friday for the sports writers that came in from all over the world, and they said no. And I said, well, we'd like to throw an event for them to honor them. And we had the dozen Mai Kai girls serving Derby daiquiris up at Churchill Downs, where I was banned for life after that. But we got into 600 newspapers the next day with them talking about the Derby daiquiri, which was a cardinal sin in bourbon country. But we took rum sales in Kentucky from 0% up to 14% in 2 years.
And so one of your big customers and your home haunt, the Mai Kai, your mother ran the gift shop at the Mai Kai from about 56 on into about 70, but for a very long time. And so you were part of that, and you literally grew up with the Mai Kai as your home base, and you kind of had a great relationship where you could skip the line and enjoy that place in its heyday, when at a time also when you were able to, I think you said something like, well, your friends were drinking Mad Dog 2020, you're having Chateau Lafite and hobnobbing and living a high life at a time that most of us wish we could just enjoy a little bit.
Well, it was really nice because my mom being pure Hawaiian, was one of the top entertainers ever to come out of Hawaii. When they honored the 6 outstanding citizens, the Hawaii legislature of the century, my mom was the only woman that was honored at that time. And she was not only a world-class hula dancer that the song Lovely Hula Hands was written for, and a major entertainer in New York City at the Hawaiian Room Lexington Hotel, but she was the face of Hawaii, and we're going to talk more about that at Hukilau today, and her 90-year history of bringing Hawaii to the mainland and then the rest of the world. So she had the largest store in Las Olas. The Mai Kai had opened. The Bob and Jack Thornton, who were the original owners of the Mai Kai, came to my mom and said, we would like you to run our gift shop because we have a gift shop that's there and it's not real successful and we can barely get into your stores. You know, I was a youngster, 16, 17 years old. Mom had like 12 models, including Nani Maka working for her. So I was a volunteer there, all I could, to go in, you know, to help out with these women's dresses and you know, being a caring son. So when Mom went into the Mai Kai, she said, we need to move the location, we need to do this over here, we need to make all these things happen, and we're going to work out a nice rent deal. And they made more money on rent the first year with Mom than they had grossed the first 2 years that the Mai Kai was open. And it grew.
That agreement was, they got 10%, right?
They got 10% of the gross.
So
and
10% of what your mother sold was more than 100% of what they'd done before that.
That is correct. And so Mom ran it. So I again, being a caring son, would go in and help Mom on like Friday nights to be able to go in there and work the early shift and, you know, try to help greet some of the customers that came up, the ladies that wanted to buy perfume and try on sarongs. I was there as a youngster, and I had the good Fort Lauderdale ID that I can talk about now because the statute of limitations has run out. So even though I was only 17, I had a South Carolina driver's license that showed that I was 21.
And then you tell us about celebrating your 21st. What you may not know is if you're of a certain age, you remember a movie called Porky's. Whether you saw it or not, you've heard of it because in my youth that was a big thing. But Porky's was somewhat based on a restaurant that's near the Mai Kai. It was like the place after the Mai Kai closed. That's where you went. It was reputed. I think it was a kind of a mobster place. A lot of big names were there. I think Sinatra played there, things like that. But Randy, you were a regular, and then you went to celebrate. You tell the story.
Well, I've been going there for 4 years. I knew Porky Baines. I knew the all sides of Porky, including he and I serving on a PTA board together with our kids. And then the wild man that ran the restaurant that when Mom and Dad would go in there, Porky would go into the safe and bring out the stuff they drank because the stuff that he poured at the bar kind of had already been helped out a little bit with water and things like that for his regular customers. So when I went in there, I took in 20 of my best friends for my 21st birthday, and Porky came over and he said, "Hey, kid," that's what he used to call me. He says, "How you doing?" I said, "Great, Porky." I said, "Celebrating my birthday." He said, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 21 today." And after they resuscitated him, because I'd been a 4-year customer, and the legal age was 21 at the time in Florida, he ended up picking up our check for the night, and I think the Temptations were there that night. Porky had every major entertainer went through that place, so we knew that he was kind of connected in some capacities.
Yeah, he had a little pull. So, you know, you were in and out of the Mai Kai. You grew up around the Mai Kai, but you grew into being more than just a customer. You were hobnobbing with the clientele and enjoying, you know, the celebrities and any stories particularly. I think you said you were there the night the governor demanded the cut through get put in place. Was that?
Yeah, I was there after hours. I spent a lot of really good time after hours with Ed McMahon and Johnny Carson. And at this night, Governor Claude Kirk was there. And we were having an after-dinner drink, and he was kind of very interested in a lot of the personnel that worked there because he was the governor of all the people and I guess more of the Mai Kai girls, you know, like Nani and the other ladies that worked there. And so he had asked that some stay over after closing to be able to serve him. And Nani had served the mystery drink. She wasn't there that night, so she didn't enjoy this. And the governor says, if there's anything we could ever do for you, let us know. And Bob Van Dorp, who was the general manager at the time, said, "Well, people have to go like a full block all the way down to Porky's to turn around and get here. If we could get a cut closer to the Mai Kai, that would really be a good thing, Governor." He said, well, give me a phone. And, of course, that was before the days when all of us carried a portable phone in our pockets, so they brought over the house phone, and he called the Secretary of Transportation, and 7 days later there was a cut at the Mai Kai, which is still there today, to be able to turn in a lot easier.
It makes things much more safe, and we all have to thank Claude Kirk every day as we go to the Mai Kai and turn around to get into the entrance. There might have been some drinking involved, but this is off topic here, but Claude Kirk is a legend. I've spent hours with Jack Drury talking about Claude Kirk, and I can tell any of those stories. But what was your relationship with the governor?
No, it was very close. He was our first Republican governor ever, or at least back to the 1800s. And he went in there. He was kind of flamboyant. He had a Brazilian girlfriend who, was runner-up the Miss Universe competition, and I often teased him. I said, you should have stayed for the best rather than, taking the runner-up. So we had that kind of friendship and relationship. He basically begged me to run for the legislature, and I told him that, I wasn't ready to go do those things yet, which I was shortly thereafter and did. But he was a really good governor. They didn't understand him. He didn't understand them. It's almost like we have now with our president. They don't understand him, and he keeps cutting deals that everybody goes, "What happened?" And Claude Kirk was the same way.
He was a real
cut deals.
outsider.
Yeah. And he had one term. That's when we amended the Constitution of Florida, and they were terrified that he'd be reelected. And now there's only Republicans that win the governor's seat in Florida.
So we're going to go back and talk about your family now, because that's Adrian has a connection through Hukilau. He probably doesn't remember, but 2004, the year of the hurricane, Randy's mother came on stage and performed Lovely Hula Hands and a couple of, so he was there. That's the first time you saw Randy, when you saw his mother there, and that was a special moment for all of us. We had no idea what was going on. We all went home and started, searching around on the internet. It's like, oh my gosh, this lady, she is Hawaii, So your grandfather, George Mossman, born on Kauai, and he was a ukulele maker. He looks sort of a multi-talented person, but he saw that the Hawaiian culture was slipping away, and he wanted to do something about it. So he started Laulani Village on the beach at Waikiki, and I guess this was 29, 30, somewhere in there.
Yes.
And it set a standard that we sort of live by today, that the Mai Kai is a part of, where it's cultural tourism, where he was bringing all of the best knowledgeable people of the culture for chant, for hula, for making huts and everything else, to teach other people and to keep the culture alive. But he was also entertaining tourists and having a luau where they would perform and share their culture, just like we do at the Mai Kai now. They come out and they do the show and they share their culture with the tourists, and it's a sort of this standard that Polynesia has embraced everywhere. But it was your grandfather who started that, and also the first school to teach the Hawaiian language.
Yeah, my granddad was quite a man. He's been honored all over the place in the Hawaiian Islands. Laulani Hawaiian Village, they occupied the entire block where the Marriott Hotel now sits from Kalakaua back to Kohio. Kulivai Maka, who was the last chanter for King Kalakaua, was a chanter at the Laulani Hawaiian Village. My mother was teaching hula from the age of 12, and when she was 15, she became like a local star in every way. She ended up being the first poster girl for the Matson line. There are 17 full-color ads of her in Life Look and National Geographic that I'm going to display today at the Hukilau. And Mom made the first color movie made in the Hawaiian Islands, The Song of the Islands, that became quite a classic. She was beckoned to New York to be the lead dancer at the Lexington Hotel. Mom was the last solo hula dancer ever at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, and they honored her on their 60th birthday and told the world that her pictures are still throughout the halls of the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. So Mom just became a part of Hawaii in every way. She was on Broadway. She was in Walter Winchell's column over 40 times, and she was a star in New York, and she was young. My Uncle George Kainapau took her over and said, "Pualani, you'll be okay. I'm your uncle. I'll take care. You'll be safe in New York." And she was 17 when she went up there to begin her professional hula career in New York City.
So it was George there at the beginning, not Ray Kinney. She toured with Ray Kinney later.
Yeah, Ray Kinney was there. But Uncle George, who was the falsetto voice that made the Hawaiian Wedding Song popular, he taught Elvis Presley in Blue Hawaii how to do the Hawaiian Wedding Song on Kauai. I was there when that happened. It was quite an experience watching my uncle teach Elvis Presley how to do a song, and Elvis did a really nice job with it. But Uncle George's song of that is still a classic in Hawaii.
So the whole family, the whole Mossman family was involved with the show, with Aulani Village, and then your mother became the star of that, and traveled the country, did a lot of great things, and then she eventually settled down here in Florida with raising the family, and that's how she had the largest store in Los Olas. Tell us what. People don't know what Los Olas Boulevard is here in Fort Lauderdale. So
Los Olas is like Worth Avenue in Palm Beach. It now has 16 restaurants in it that you can't get in. One of the ironies there of Los Olas Boulevard is that some history there. About 40 years ago, they were going to build a high-rise bridge over Los Olas Boulevard, and the Fort Lauderdale Jaycees led a drive down here with petitions to not do that, to dig the first tunnel. And they got a petition initiative done, and they built a tunnel. So Los Olas would not be what it is today without that. And now it is the spot, most expensive rent in South Florida for retail. And Mom had the largest store there in Los Olas. The last store, Moss and Hoffman, that was there, is now gone. So it's a different era today than it was then.
Now, if you're here for Hukilau or whatever, I advise you to head over to the Floridian, the little diner there. It's a classic place. Johnny Carson's picture there with Sally Sewell and the Mai Kai girl, and it's great just environment. Love that place.
So while we won't be on the air, and this story that I'm about to tell on there, one of the secrets of the Mai Kai is about Nani Maka. Nani Maka was one of the original Mystery Bowl girls, and when she was in there, Bob Thornton, who was one of the original owners, Nani was knocking him dead for 3 months. You were a Mystery Bowl girl? 3 months. And Bob Thornton took her in the back office and said, "Nani, I need to speak with you." And she said, "Yes, sir." And he said to her, "Let me ask you a question." And Nani's one of those people in your life that won't lie to you no matter how important it is. He said, "How old are you?" And she sat there and froze and said, 15. And he says, "Do you realize that I'm serving alcoholic beverages in here, and you're my star, and you're effectively fired immediately? But I hope that maybe at some point you can be one of our dancers here at the Mai Kai, but I can't have you serve another drink in here." So he fired her. And that secret is not known by anybody until this minute.
Someone came in from the other coast and knew how old I was, and went to Bob and said, "Do you know how old that girl is that's serving your mystery drink?" And that was it. Oh, I was devastated. I loved the job.
Well, you join a fine long list of girls who've been fired
Yes.
from the Mai Kai for being underage.
That's right.
And Angel, who will be here later, was one of my favorites. Her boyfriend was just jealous and called the police, and they dragged her out in her mystery outfit. And, she's platinum blonde, so she's got the big wig on.
Oh my gosh.
God, I wish I had that booking photo. But Bob and Jack Thornton went to the police station and bailed her out and took care of her. They weren't, they weren't mad about it. They weren't happy about it, but they it's like family.
Well, I went with my mom to when I was hired, and we said that I was. My mom told them that I was.
It was 18 then. Yeah.
Yes, 18, and Bob said, "Well, we could work that out with the police. 21. You look older." So, anyhow, that was fine. But we obviously had lied, and I was really 50. She was there with me every night. So.
Yeah, and apparently somebody from Clearwater High School that recognized you said, "Wait a minute, she's in class with one of my daughters over at."
You were born in Honolulu, right?
Yes.
And
I was actually born there. See, my birth certificate from Hawaii is with Pualani, and it's the correct address. And that's all I'll say about that.
Wink, wink. Yeah. Can we see that?
Yeah. I've seen it.
Okay. We'll take your word for it, Nani. He says you don't lie.
That's right.
No, I was really born there. And my grandfather was one of the largest beneficiaries, and his estate continued that at Pualani, and also with the University of Hawaii. He was a major benefactor for everything in Hawaii, and it was really interesting because Mom, never got out of the system. When we had entertainment here at the Broward Center of the Performing Arts, we would have some of the big entertainers come in. Makaha Sons and Jake, yeah. And no matter who we had here, and then we had George Kahamuku Jr., Mom always opened the show. And this is continued until she danced till she was 90. And she was co-chairman of the Statehood Committee for Hawaii back when Hawaii was going to be the 49th state. And that is a story unto itself that I told before the Hawaii legislature a few years ago when I was their speaker, about the 49th, how the 49th became the 50th state with a deal in the U.S. Senate. One of the many deals that I know about was that Mom had Harry Truman, when Harry Truman was president of the United States, play the piano for her as she entertained 6 U.S. senators trying to sell on statehood for Hawaii. She had them roll around their suit coats and roll up their pants, and she taught them the hula, kind of like Nani did all the years that she danced at either at the Mai Kai or the Polynesian room, the Yankee Clipper Hotel.
So you're involved in a lot of business. You still do a lot of business in Hawaii and are there very regularly. You said something the other day. You got your hands on a lot of fires, like you were talking about getting a statue of Don Ho. You mentioned that your mother was honored as a legend of Hawaii in every county. I remember you tell.
Yeah, and she was. Mom would go back to Hawaii, and it's funny because she was in her 80s, so she would entertain at these senior homes, and she would show her movie, The Song of the Islands, and tell the story from back then, and then get these elderly people up who were all younger than her, and say, come on, let's go, girls, let's get up here, let's dance, and she'd have 50 people up there dancing. After she did it twice, she ended up doing it at the major auditoriums on Maui and Kauai and the Big Island, and it was quite a media event. And each of the county councils then honored her with honorary membership in their respective counties, and then the Hawaii legislature, of course, at the turn of the century, at the millennium, honored her as one of their 6 outstanding citizens of the century.
So you were friends with Bob Van Dorp when he was here, Leonce Pico, and he was assistant manager of the Mai Kai, and then started the Down Under with Al Kokab and VA Maison and Nob Hill in San Francisco. You were regular at some of those places.
Yeah, at House Accounts at all of them. Leonce is probably the finest restaurateur ever, other than, of course, my friends from the Mai Kai. But Leonce was brilliant at what he did. He had really great restaurants around Fort Lauderdale, and then in Monterey, and then in San Francisco. And he absolutely was a great restaurateur, good friend of mine. Bob Van Dorp, bless his soul, was a good friend of mine also. When you said that I grew up in Lauderdale, I've never grown up. That's the only difference here is that I've gotten older, but I haven't grown up yet, as Nani can attest to.
We're all still waiting, but we hope it doesn't happen.
So we're excited to be here. This is going to be an interesting event. You always do a really nice job putting this together. When you captured the book about the Mai Kai, you really found out things that other people didn't know about it, because everything was so guarded and there was such a change in the Mai Kai. And there's still a lot of Mai Kai secrets that are out there that I'm not going to divulge, even though I told you one today. But the Mai Kai is still here. It opened in 1956. Nani was the dancer there for their 60th anniversary, the lead dancer, and it's still open in 2019 through a lot of really dedicated friends of the Mai Kai and others that have been there when Mai Kai was challenged. But the dream lives on, and there's not many Polynesian restaurants that are still left and operating around the world, particularly with the success of the Mai Kai.
Well, you're of the generation and of the means that you were able to, you could go to San Francisco's Trader Vic's in the heyday and traveled all over and actually can attest to the qualities of Don the Beachcomber, Chicago, some of those places that you were there and at the Mai Kai. So
Trader Vic's, at the Plaza Hotel. And then in Chicago, I did about 100 Polynesian restaurants over the years, because I just had this thing about Hawaii and loving it and going, wow, let's see who's got the best Mai Tai. And one of the things they had in the in the other bar, the Molokai bar was just a little bar up front. The back bar, the Surfside bar, was the great bar at the Mai Kai. And they had this deal in there. If you drank every drink in the Mai Kai, they would stamp your little card, and then you would get a plaque and get your name up there and all that. Well, I accomplished that, and I was still underage at the time, so it was
16.
No.
I'm kidding.
The law changed in Florida at exactly the wrong time. It changed from 18 to 21 when I turned 18, and but one of the things that I'll kid about, I'll tell you this fun story here, is that I've just had knee surgery, I've had back surgery, so I'm totally bionic now. So I've gone back to my guy that did my false ID, that when I was 17 he made me 21, and now I've rolled my age back with him, getting the same South Carolina driver's license, so I'm now 59. Yeah, so none of these memories we're talking about I actually live, because I'm too young.
I'm about to catch up with you. That's scary.
Yeah, I can introduce you to the guy while you're here.
I'd like to be 49. How about that?
If you have a product, service, or event that you'd like to bring attention to, we can help. This podcast reaches thousands of listeners in over 100 countries every week. Imagine hearing your ad in this spot, just like you're hearing this one right now. Sponsor an episode and get the exposure you deserve. For more information, go to desertoasisroom.com and click on Services. This episode is sponsored by the Tiki Bar T-Shirt Club, where their monthly T-shirt designs pay tribute to a Polynesian bar or restaurant from days long past. Each design is available for a limited time and will never be produced again. For the collectors out there, be sure to check out their subscription program, where they offer a discounted 3, 6, or 12-month plan, or you can always buy shirts one at a time. For more information and to check out this month's shirt, visit tikibartshirtclub.com. This episode is brought to you in part by Steadfast Pomade. Steadfast Pomade is a strong-holding, medium-bodied, water-based styling product for men and women, which leaves your hair looking slick, neat, and shiny with a clean, fresh scent. Its unique formula allows you to easily restyle your hair throughout the day and washes out with ease. Steadfast Pomade is American-made and veteran-owned. Available in original and anchor hold. Get yours today at steadfastpomade.com. Tame the waves and keep it steadfast.
So Nani, I'm gonna bug you now a little bit because you have this history as well. You were a performer at the Yankee Clipper and all over South Florida, and you worked with Bob Van Dorp's wife's sister, Greta.
Yes.
Worked
with her. Pualani, yes.
Did
Kuili.
you work with him?
Yes, I did. Worked with Kuili at the Roni Plaza in Miami Beach. They had a volcano built, and so we worked there together. We worked in Palm Beach at the Samoa restaurant, and Randy and I and Kui used to sit in Tamio. Tamio worked with me originally, and we would make leis for my show and also for everybody at the Mai Kai with his moms at the gift shop. So we all would sit on the floor in the morning around 10 or 11 and put all these leis and various costumes and shells.
So you were trained as a Hawaiian dancer, and then you came here as a young girl.
Yes.
So Bob Van Dorp told me this story, or maybe it was, and Leonce as well. And I haven't ever asked you guys if you have a memory of they'd hired Kui Lee to entertain people waiting in line at the Mai Kai. Do you remember that at all?
I don't really remember Kui being there, but
I do. I remember.
But then again, my three or 4 months were cut short.
Kui Lee stayed at my parents' home for a year, and it was during that time period that Kui wrote "I'll Remember You," and so Kui used to make coconut hats for the people waiting in line at the Mai Kai to get in, and I do remember that vividly. And of course, Kui Lee was one of the greatest songwriters in Hawaii history. And Maka's sons do his song, "The Best I'll Remember You," but we had Don Ho's version of it, as Don was part of our family, and so Don did that. And one of the funny stories with Don, not to steal your momentum here, is that the song "Lovely Hula Hands" was written for my mother. So Don didn't perform "Lovely Hula Hands." So every time we would go to Hawaii, Mom would go out there, and she's the first cousin with Don Ho, and say, "Don, you got to learn how to do Lovely Hula Hands." He says, "Pualani, she says, you've got to learn how to do that." And so the first time that he did that song ever, Mom danced for him. And so every time we went to Hawaii, Mom would get up on the stage with Don and dance Lovely Hula Hands. Well, Nani now is flown in around the world to do 2 songs, Lovely Hula Hands and the Hawaiian Wedding Song. And she now has picked up a lot of that mantle and carries a lot of moms. She does the old hula, so she carries a lot of that into the current. When she goes out to Hawaiian dances, the current dancers come out on the stage and are blown away by the way she dances the hula.
She has lovely hands too.
Thank you. Mahalo. Thank you.
When I was visiting Bob Van Dorp, his daughter was telling us a story that Kui Lee and Bob were good friends, and Kui would sort of bounce things off of Bob, and he had this new song that he was like trying to figure out if he wanted to bring it into the show and have Don do it, and it was Tiny Bubbles. So he played it for Bob Van Dorp, and Bob said, "Oh, that's stupid. It's terrible. It's an awful song." And Kui said, "Well, thanks, Bob. If you hate it, it's going to be a hit."
That's pretty good. That is pretty good.
So thanks to Bob Van Dorp and his kind of nerdiness or whatever, highbrow, we have...
Kui used to imbibe a little bit in rum, and sometimes prior to our show, and of course he did the fire knife and so forth, but there were 4 of us dancing, and at the finale we would all go by. We're doing Tahitian, and then he would take a bow, but as we went by him, we had coconut bras that tied in the back, and he would pull the strap as we went by, and so we all ended up, we couldn't raise our arms to do anything, just holding the coconuts kind of in place the best we could.
Now, was his wife a part of the show, or what?
No.
No.
Do you still have those coconuts? Or okay, this is a PG rated interview, so we have to.
I love it. I outgrew the coconuts, so there. I was very young.
Well, good for all of us. Huh?
Yeah.
Yes, we're all still here.
And it's the small circle of performers. I start talking to someone, who was Chief Falia, and he tells me stories. I'm like, oh, well, that person. It's like all of the Hawaiian performers knew each other and crossed paths, and that having Kui Lee, and that's another thing. But I guess I'm going to circle back, and we're going haywire here. But you have a lot of relatives that I think our listeners would know. Rattle off a little bit of your family.
Well,
we talked about George Kainapau, the golden voice of Hawaii.
Yes. And, of course, Don Ho. One of my proudest relatives is Boyd Mossman. Boyd Mossman served as the Chief Justice in Maui, and then served a term on the OHA board. So we're very proud of him. Kimo Kahuano is my cousin and is still a big entertainer in the Hawaiian Islands, and even dances the men's hula, the naughty hula, better than I do. But I'm very careful who sees that and what we do with that. So it's the Mossman family goes very deep and all different sides of my family. We still have family throughout the Hawaiian Islands. We get back and visit them on the Big Island and on even Lanai and Molokai.
Sterling Mossman,
everywhere.
The Barefoot Bar.
Yeah, Sterling. Sterling Mossman was a classic out there. Sterling. That was the last bar really that was on the ocean there, the Queen Surf, the Barefoot Bar at the Queen Surf. And I went out there when I was 18 years old, and I just met Sterling then. I didn't know him up till that point, and I went in to see his show the first night, and their place was about 80% women. And I liked that a lot, so I wanted to, because he's my family, I wanted to go there every night and support his efforts. So about the third night there,
I'm seeing a pattern here.
Has it changed?
about the third night there, Sterling says to me, he says, I have a special cousin here from Fort Lauderdale, big singer on the mainland. Randy, you want to get up here and do a couple songs for the ladies and all that? I said, no, I'm not entertaining while I'm here tonight, cuz I appreciate that. And that was really good. That worked out really nice for the rest of my stay there. So, and I never did sing because I can't.
Alfred Paka is a relative of yours?
No, Alfred's not. But we can go back through many generations where we can find out where he was. Because Hawaii is a small town, and the interrelationships and relations there run really deep. And, of course, everybody is a cousin or a brother in some capacity, but we weren't actually related to Alfred Paka. But, boy, was he a great entertainer, and he's been honored at the Hilton Hawaiian Village with a great statue there. And he was the Hapa Haole singer, the greatest.
You've got the chance to see these people that we only hear on records and wish we could have seen, Tell me about Walt Disney.
Interesting scenario with Walt Disney. When I was like a young teenager living in Coral Gables, my grandfather came in there to visit us, and he had another old man with him. And, of course, I was just worried about going out that night because I like to go out dancing. Used to go out, and he brings this.
Sterling should ask you to dance.
He brings this older man in to meet me. And this guy is like from Fantasyland. He's telling stories about how they're going to build this thing in Orlando, and there's going to be trains that run between hotels. And my grandfather was working because they wanted one of the original destinations to be from Hawaii because of Leilani Hawaiian Village. And so,
he visited Leilani, right?
Oh yeah, many times. And so I sat there and went like, man, this is like totally off the wall. I got to get out of here. Grandpa, great seeing you. And that's the first time I met Walt Disney. It was like then I watched as I got a little older, and I'm going, wow, I knew all that before that. People going, yeah, right. But my grandfather also was deeply involved in a lot of the pre-drawings for the Polynesian Cultural Center, and he was heavily involved with Walt Disney, and unfortunately passed before it opened. And boy, Disney World is kind of successful these days.
I've heard of that place. I've got to get over there. So you're going to be at Tiki Oasis doing talk about your grandfather, about what are you going to be doing?
Yeah, they're doing a major feature there on my family, Hawaiian family. They're going to show Mom's movie. And then I'm going to talk about Leilani Hawaiian Village and the history, go into a little deeper than what we are here, about some of the other things that we've been involved with in foundations and much more. And then And then I'm not going to get up and do the hula there, but we're gonna be a part of Tiki Oasis, and it's really an impressive gathering, as is Hukilau. People come from 22 nations to Tiki Oasis, and I'm sure they enjoy that same kind of support here. But it's an amazing event that goes on every August in San Diego, which is a really nice place to visit anytime.
You were telling me about, I don't know if you want to, I think you probably are fine with, there was a group, Bob Endorp, when I talked to him, he says, ask Randy about the CFs. And that's all he said.
Well, as I said, this is a good PG radio show here, and the CFs, we called ourselves the Cultural Fanatics, which really wasn't the real name, and we would have parties that we utilized the Mai Kai serving personnel. Leon's rest
Again,
his
you're
soul
such a
was a part.
caring person about the
girls. And we invited some of those people over. And Fort Lauderdale was, where the boys are was made. And then all of a sudden we had this infusion of women that came down here looking to where the boys were. And being a Chamber of Commerce person, as I've always been, I was trying to help these visiting tourists feel welcome in our community. So I started this organization with a group of about 20 guys that had the same spirit in their heart. And we had parties about 5 nights a week at this event, and
you all sort of chipped in on a place.
Yeah, we had a 2-bedroom that we made into a 4-bedroom, because one night when we were all drinking pretty heavily, we took out a pickaxe and made a crawl space to be able to get into the rest of it. And the lady that owned the place was there, and we had gotten her feeling really good. And she actually took about the 4th swing. She says, "Well, hell, if it's going to happen." And so the boys at the Mai Kai attended some of my parties, and that was before they had a oceanfront place. And that's when we shifted from this place after we paid for the rebuilding of the wall. We shifted our activities to their oceanfront, and that's just another story that's not going to be told.
Well, so this sounds like this is another trend. I don't remember if you or Bob were telling me that you were you had apartments in the same building but that were back to back, and got tired of going to the other place to get ice, or the story.
Yeah, that's it. That's how the whole got there.
So let's just have a pass through here.
But we were young and wild then, Now I'm older, more refined, and these memories are slipping away. So I can't recall some of it. Senator, I have no recollection.
I asked Leon Spico. I did a long interview with him, and then I knew my last question was going to be, so Randy and Bob were telling me about the CFs. What was your memory of that? And he says, I don't remember anything about the CFs.
Yes, very good. That's probably should be my answer, but
I have no idea.
But the statute of limitations has run out, and all those women are happily married and back in Ohio now, so it's good.
And as I talk to some, it's funny to me. It's great for me as a historian and interviewer. Is the stories that you probably wouldn't have shared 30 years ago. Folks are like, this is some of the great times of my life. I have no regrets. This was you've shared. I edit the stories. I've heard a lot of stories that I'm glad I heard them. It gives me a lot of context, but. The 60s were a great time to be young and free, and
yeah, they really were. And one of the nice things about Mom owning the gift shop, and me getting to know all the personnel at the Mai Kai pretty well, and the Mai Kai back then had in some point times like an hour and a half wait. The Mai Kai had a dress code. You had to have a coat and tie to get in. Now you have to have at least beach attire to get in. So that part has changed. And there were movie stars waiting out front to get in because nobody got in. And I would pull in and see the parking lot kid, and he would pick up the phone and call inside, and a minute later, the thing is, Mr. Avon, your table's ready. And I go, yes. And we walk right in. And so it was good when you're 19 to be able to do that in a restaurant that was one of the top restaurants in the United States.
Yeah, there would be, 50, 100 people waiting behind the velvet ropes, and you'd show up with a young, impressionable friend and and just waltz right in, right?
I have no recollection of the impressionable friend.
And the Mai Kai had their own credit system, right? They not a credit card, but you'd have like a house account.
Very interesting part of that story. The Mai Kai, when it opened, and then when Mom got in there, took no credit cards. So you had to pay by cash. And this was back a long time ago when that was, American Express was brand new, and Diners was brand new, and Carte Blanche was brand new. And so Mom set up a deal with Andy, who was the maitre d', and Bob Van Dorp and the Thorntons, that she would cash their check at the gift shop. So people come over, Pualani, I understand that I can cash my check here for you. She says, sure. I do it for all my customers, And so Mom...
Hang on for a moment and look around, right?
Yeah. One of my fun stories is Mom basically put together with somebody else. She represented Kahala. She had all the Kahala line exclusive for Florida. So she saw one of the Kahala bathing suits and a sarong. She said, we got to combine this. And so she had a designer go out and design for her a sarong and match bathing suit. So we'd be in the Mai Kai, and the first young, beautiful lady that went by, that was probably there with her uncle that night, Mom would say, excuse me, young lady. He says, my model didn't show up tonight, and you're a perfect 8. Would you do me a favor? Can you try this on for me while you're in the ladies' room? So the young lady would go into the ladies' room. Mom would go with her and talk to her. She said, oh, my God, you look beautiful in this. I'll tell you what. I'll make you a deal. You go out and show this to your escort husband or whatever, and as you are, and I'll give it to you as my gift. And so now they would go back out and come back in. Of course, there's no fashion show at the Mai Kai until Mom got there, and there never was an official fashion show. So this young lady go out and come back, and the next thing you know, there's 6 other guys. They're going up the thing that went by, and then when they went in, we used to, as Nani was saying, we used to make wood fiber lace. And my brother and I would compete. I could make 50 on a given day, and that gave me $1 a lay to be able to go out and have a little spending money. And so Mom sold these wood fiber lace in there for $4. And people would come over, and once you give one to them, she'd say, oh, well, here, let me give you this. You bought some of this here, and let me put some of our cologne on it from Hawaii. And so they'd go back in the restaurant, and here there are 600 poor other guys sitting there with their dates, spending the same amount of money as the guy that's sitting over there with the one with the lei on. And Mom would be on the phone back to the house going, I need another 100 leis right away. And then the perfume that was on there, where's that from? Well, my mom and dad made their own perfume and cologne. And so Mom was the most entrepreneurial person I've ever seen. The other side of her hula dancing, she was just an absolutely unbelievable entrepreneurial person and an investor. My mom bought land in places that my dad passed out. When she says, yeah, we bought some land that's between the Intercoastal and the ocean up in Fort Pierce. He said, where is Fort Pierce? It'll be something really big. And it's an area called Manalapan now, and I think there's a multi-million-dollar homes and a Ritz-Carlton right nearby where Mom got that land. And she had those kind of deals all over the place. And Dad would ask her, honey, we can't afford this, we're raising 5 kids and we got this going on. 4 kids, excuse me. And I raised 5 kids. And he'd tell the story, and Mom would say, well, I would, I'd take like $30 a night out of the side and put it over here. She says, I always reported it for the Thorntons, but I didn't actually bring the 30 home for the count because you never double-checked my count. And so I just put that into a slush fund, and I paid cash for that land up there. Dad would go, wow. But that was my mom. She's a remarkable woman.
And even at that time, she was still performing, right? You had you were on the TV show locally, and
everywhere. She had her own TV show down here in the 50s, the Alec Gibson show. She entertained on WTVJ Channel 4 when that was the only channel down here. But Mom entertained every minute. I took Mom and Dad on major trips around the world because I'd become very successful in my businesses. And we would go into airports, I don't care where we were, whether it was London or Paris or Stockholm, and Mom would go to the boarding gate and say, anybody here ever been to Hawaii? Raise your hand. And 3 or 4 people says, okay, you and you and you, get up now. We're going to show the rest of these people how the hula's done. And we put on a little music, and she'd get up there and teach people how to do the hula in airports and everywhere. One of the other things my mom did that we talked about at her funeral that was attended by 1,000 people was when I would go to Hawaii, Mom say, go out to the international, not the international marketplace, but to the Aloha Stadium, because they've got the thing out there, and bring me back 10 gross of those little puka shell leis. I go, what? And she used to do this and embarrassed me a lot as a kid. She would go out every day of her life with 20 of these on her. And every place she saw somebody, whether it was a cleaning girl, whether it was Denny's here, whether it was picking up this or doing that, she said, I'm going to give you a lei from Hawaii to give you love into your life and make you feel better today. So I'm from Hawaii, I'm Pualani, and that's for you. So when Mom died, we had people lined up. People flew in. Her obituary was on the front page of the Honolulu Advertiser and Bulletin, our bulletin. People flew in from all over the world, and people got up telling stories about, I've had this lei for 50 years. Your mother gave it to me, and the one lady got us all. She said, my son had died the day before, and I was in the worst moment of my life, but I had to go to work because I had to work, because I had to pay for the funeral. And I met your mom that day, and she changed my life. And I flew in from Chicago to be at this funeral because I saw her obituary. So that's the way Mom touched people's lives, and she lived that spirit of aloha every minute of her life till she was 90, and she was still entertaining at 90.
That performance at the Hukilau is what brought you and I together through this. It's funny. I was talking to DeSoto Brown at the Bishop Museum, and we were talking about you, and I said, yeah, I have this crazy story about how I met Randy, and he says, I've got a crazy story about how I met Randy. And it's like, does everybody have a crazy story about that? You're like the center of the synergy of Hawaiian research, and when if it wasn't for that night, this whole area of my research would have just not happened. And I'm so happy that I was able to find you, and that you are still, very involved with telling your mother's story. Is there more? Is there? You talked about a film, or is something like that going on, or is this just? Yeah,
they're doing a story of my mom's life. I've met with the artists, producers, and everything, and it's still a secret, but they're doing the story of her life, and there's major support from Hawaii and corporate sponsors and all. Matson is deeply interested in it, of course, because they're still very, very active. I'll never forget the day that I had Mom in Hawaii. I'll tell another story about John Waihee when John was governor of Hawaii. I get called into John's office, and I was there with Moki Kealoha. And Moki was a legend in Hawaii, cabinet official in several administrations. And John Waihee, who is a friend, he says, Randy, tell me something. I just learned that your mother is Pualani Mossman Avon. Is that true? I said, yeah. He said, I'll hold my breath and say, is she still alive? I said, Governor, she's still alive, and she's landing with my dad in 3 hours in Honolulu. He goes, oh, my God, get me the flight information. So I said, okay. So I get him the flight information. I go to the airport to meet Mom. And, of course, this is long before 9/11 when you could actually go out to the gates and do everything. And so I go out there, and I look up, and there's Governor Waihee and the Royal Hawaiian Band at the gate waiting to meet Mom. Now, this is the maddest Mom has ever at me in her life because I didn't alert her so she could get all dolled up, after her 15 hours of flying from Fort Lauderdale, all in. And so she gets off the plane, and I'd flown in first class always, and so she and Dad, her first one's off, and the Royal Hawaiian Band starts playing lovely Hula Hands, and the governor's there with leis and all that, and I'm like, and Mom's looking at me like, you did this? I'm going, Mom, I had nothing to do with it. I just told Moki Kealoha, who told the governor, and that was quite a visit they had in Hawaii. So there's just a ton of those stories that are out there, and you triggered some of them in me because of our friendship and relationship, and now I guess I can tell another secret on you, because one of the things that I had, one of my best friends in the Mai Kai was the original mixmaster, Mariano, and then his chief right-hand lieutenant was Phil, and Phil and I were best friends, and that's how I got all the recipes for all the drinks in the Mai Kai. And I've only shared them with one person in my life, and I'm sitting next to him right now. It's this gentleman here. So he now has all the recipes for all the drinks at the Mai Kai.
So when I first went to interview Randy, I don't want to tell the long story. The short story is he has a place outside of Asheville, North Carolina, just about an hour and a half from my house. So I didn't know who he was, but he says, let's get together and talk. So he invites me to his cabin, chateau, whatever you want to call it. And my offering was I brought a crate full of stuff to make any of the drinks on the Mai Kai menu, right? And I'm going to make drinks, and he's going to tell stories, and we end up talking like all night. But so I said, what do you want? I can make anything except the black magic. I don't have the recipe for that. Nobody has the recipe. He says, I do. So I keep talking, and then he says, anything but the black magic. He says, I've got the recipe, and there's this piece of paper, a folded up piece of notebook paper, and he says, here. And I'm like, speechless. Here it is. This is way before any leaks of the recipe were anywhere, and anybody had seen it. It was still top secret information, and I'm like, here it is. And he says, and that Mariano wrote those for me, so it's in Mariano Liquidini's handwriting.
Wow. That's nice.
And I took a picture, and my hands shaking, and I'm like, and the next morning we're packing up to leave, and I said, so you're gonna have somebody like photocopy that for me and send it to me? And I'm still like freaking out. Like, did my picture come out? Am I going to get? And he says, no, just take it with you. It's framed on the wall of my bar.
And neither one of us has opened a Polynesian restaurant to this day.
But I work a lot with Jim Hayward, who does the blog, and I do not tell him any of the recipes, but we sort of ping back and forth, and I help guide him on, are you going in the right direction or not, or whatever. But it's one of the things I regret that I didn't get into the book was I wanted to publish a couple of those recipes just to show how Mariano took a Don the Beachcomber recipe and tweaked it to make it better. And unfortunately, the time just ran out. I'd already written the chapter on Mariano, and I didn't have time to go back and rewrite it and put this stuff in it. So everybody buy the book so we can get a second edition out, and then I'll put that extra stuff about Mariano in there. But
that's a great book. You did a really great job on it. You did tremendous research. I know there was a lot of pushback from those that didn't want the stories told for whatever reasons, but you got through that, made it happen. And if you don't have the book, can you get it on Amazon or anywhere? This is an unpaid announcement here.
You should get it at the Mai Kai gift shop. That's the way to get it. I just signed 100 copies a couple of nights ago, so they're well stocked. And my book, if you don't have it or you haven't read it, is inspired by people like Randy and Nani Maka, who told me their stories. Now, I did a lot of research, but the research that I did was to fill in blanks about the stories that these folks have shared with me, and that's my passion. That's what I'm doing here today, is sharing the stories of the people who lived it. I think my book is much more readable than the typical history book, and it's not a typical history book because every page of that book is tied to a person that I talked to who shared their memories, rather than, there's an article in 1964 and I'm quoting that. I'm quoting Randy Avon and Bob Van Dorp and Murray Thornton and Todi Tearatua and all these people who were there and lived it. And so I'm happy to have Randy here and come to Tiki Oasis and see him tell more stories about his amazing family and his amazing life.
And it's really interesting because, and we've got to set up because I've got all this stuff of moms that I got to let these people see. But Toti is in challenged health. Toti is a good friend, still lives here. He and his wife are just wonderful people. They're really good friends of ours, and I remember hundreds of nights of going in and seeing the boys and Toti and that tuete up there playing that thing, and it was like, wow, this is like so cool. And then of course there's the 50 or 60 nights that I got up to volunteer to dance because I wanted to help the girls through their show, so they could, get a little of that, that Hapa Haole in there.
You have such the spirit of giving. It's
it's just unbelievable.
it's a strange version of what your mother did, but it's yours, right?
Yes, it's totally different. Yes,
Let me share the aloha with you, young lovely lady.
Yes, one of my last stories is that Mom and Dad was a CFO before there were CFOs. And Mom was, in 1938, in Walter Winchell's column, he said the highest paid entertainer in New York City, which is pretty interesting as a hula dancer. There was a 6-month wait to get into the Hawaiian room at the Lexington Hotel, so people were calling the governor and mayor and all that to get in and see her. Dad was the comptroller of the chain. And so he fell, like everybody, goo-goo over Mom. And at Christmas time, being the Hawaiian thing, she gave all 700 employees of the hotel a gift, and she gave Dad a tie. Well, my grandmother on Dad's side was an opera singer from Austria. So that's that side of the family. And so my dad, this was it. My dad did not have my outgoing personality until the later years. And so he went in to see Pualani to thank her for the tie. The most beautiful tie I've ever seen. And so that was his opener. And he said, "Oh, by the way, my mother is also an entertainer. She's an opera singer. She's at Carnegie Hall. I wonder if sometime we could have coffee with her." And he probably said it about that fast too, because he was really nervous. And that's how it began. And a year later, they were married. Little church around the corner. Mayor of New York City was there. Walter Winchell was there, and they were married all their lives. And here's Dad, who is 15 minutes early to every meeting in his life as a corporate businessman, and Mom, who wouldn't start getting ready until you're supposed to be there, had 55 happy, wonderful years together. She still lived on Hawaiian time.
We have got to break and get ready for our presentation here at Hukilau, but thanks, Randy, for doing this and for being part of my presentation and my research and being my friend.
Mahalo. What a pleasure being here, and all the best in your show. Pleasure being on your show here, sir.
Can I say something real quick? The first reaction that I have to this particular session is wow. One word, wow. I want to thank you, Tim, so much for setting this up for me, for being a good friend as well. And I especially want to thank our special guests, Randy Avon and Nani Maka. I am so honored that you spent some time with the podcast, that you took some time out of your busy schedule in preparing for your presentation to share your stories with us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
We enjoyed it.
Aloha.
Aloha. And for all our listeners out there that have any questions, comments, or just want to leave a shout out for our esteemed guests here, please stop by our group page on Facebook, Inside the Desert Oasis Room. Follow us on Instagram at Desert Oasis Room, at Polynesian Pop. And please, please, please come to the Mai Kai when you are in fabulous Fort Lauderdale. Let's support this Polynesian palace, the greatest Polynesian palace in the world. Thank you again so much, folks.
Wonderful.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Lovely hula hands, graceful as the birds in motion, gliding like the gulls over the ocean. Lovely hula hands, Nani Maka. Lovely hula hands, telling of the rain in the valley, and the swirling wind over the pali. Lovely hula hands, Nani Maka. I can feel the soft caresses of your lovely hands, your lovely hula hands. Every little move expresses, so I'll understand all the tender meaning of your hula hands. Fingertips that say aloha, again, I love you, lovely hula hands, Kolimanani e. I can feel the soft caresses of your lovely hands, your lovely hula hands. Every little move expresses, so I'll understand all the tender meaning of your hula hands. Fingertips that say aloha. Say to me again, I love you, lovely hula hands, Kolimanani e, Kolimanani e.